There's an old Chinese proverb that says, you cannot leap a chasm in 2 bounds. Basically, pretty self-explanatory, but if you fail on the first try, you're falling in the chasm. And so I wanted to do this video for a long time. I've been thinking about it for a long time. And one of my subscribers, Eddie, who goes by the handle Jonathan B. Swift, sent me a message and said, hey, have you ever done a top 10 on Sandalwood? And I've been going back and forth, or this is not a top 10 on Sandalwood. And I've been going back and forth on whether to do Sandalwood, Cedar, oak, all that stuff in one episode or break them up into a bunch of smaller ones. And since it is my channel, and this is not a top 10 series, is really all about the celebration of perfume. It's a way to show you guys a lot of fragrances. Hopefully you'll learn a lot about different fragrances that I own, that I went for, that I bought, that kind of thing. And, it's not meant to pump out content. I watch these fragrance reviewers, and it feels like they're just doing another video to pump out content. Like they just, I have to do another video today. This is not a top 10 compliment monster list for 2021. This is a top 10, most complimented for 2022. And this is the favorite spring compliments, and on and on and on, right? And they're just pumping it out because they know if they pump out a bunch of content, the YouTube algorithm likes it and they will continue to get their revenue. Well, my channel's not monetized. So this is all about sharing my love of perfume with you guys. And I saw something today that really motivated me. I saw some old perfume bottles from Lalique, and when he made them in 1912, stuff like that. And they were just gorgeous. And, it really reminded me, it brought me back, it centered me again onto why I love perfume and why I like to share my passion and hobby with you guys. And so let's get started. I'm going to do this is not a top 10 woody note fragrances because there's going to be sandalwood, cedar wood, oak, Guaic wood, all that stuff kind of thrown in. There's more, there's probably double the amount of fragrances on the list I could do because woody notes in masculine perfumery is so prevalent. But I wanted to pick out some of the ones that I thought are worth highlighting, right? And so before we get started, we're going to do Scent of the Day as usual. And Scent of the Day today is an absolute banger. It's a masterpiece for my taste. Now, it may not be a masterpiece technically, okay? This may not be the best technical fragrance you've ever smelled, but for what I love, if you like things that I love, you have to get your nose on this perfume. This is from the house of Rocco Barocco, and it's just called Pour Homme. Eau de Toilette Pour Homme. Now, you can see that this is a 50 ml bottle that I got from Manouche at Enchante. Although I also have a either 25 or 30 ml backup that's smaller, and if you look it up on Fragrantica, you'll notice that there is a listing for it, but there's no notes. So to my nose, it flies in the same airspace as fragrances like Boss No. 1. If you've ever smelled Tenere by the House of Paco Rabanne, that very indolic, floral, honeyed, Uranus honey with animalic notes. There's a little bit of Koros in here. If you know this fragrance from the same house, Joint Pour Homme, I am going to do one day, soon hopefully, I'm going to do a comparison video between this bottle of Joint, which is distributed by Hescanas. You can see right there, Hescanas. And I'm going to do my comparison with the other bottle that I own, which is distributed by 2P Parfums. So we're going to make sure that, everything is still on the up and up between those two. But it's in the ballpark of Joint, Boss No. 1, Tenere, a little bit of Koros. And it's absolutely beautiful. I'm loving every second of this. This is so me. It's so my style, and I love that juice. So I'm glad to have a backup bottle of that. So that's the other thing about these this is not a top 10, is you get little tips on fragrances of the day as well. And that's why I never want to time myself. I just want to, you know, talk about perfume. And if somebody listens to the first 30 minutes and has to pause it and come back, they can just pick it right back up, and we're going to keep talking about perfume. So we're going to begin this list with a spicy woody fragrance that no one talks about. I've never heard anyone else talk about this fragrance ever. This is from the house of Giacomo, and it's called Anthracite pour l'Homme. Now, this is a splash bottle, 100 milliliter splash bottle that I got, I think from Le Parfume maybe a year or two back. I can't remember where I got this, to be honest with you. But this is Giacomo's take on this Fougère quality fragrance. It has an insane note of sweet corn in the top, which I've never seen in a fragrance before. But it's basically it opens up a little bit citrusy with bergamot, grapefruit, marjoram, cyclamen. There's iris, carnation, lavender. The base is amber, oak moss, musk. There's tonka, because I think this is their take on a fougère. And then there's also sandalwood and cedarwood. And sandalwood and cedarwood, you'll notice, are a killer combination. Those two notes work together beautifully. They play off of each other, and they create this lovely woody base. So this is discontinued. You're on my channel. I'm sorry, we're starting off with 2 discontinued fragrances. This is scent of the day, so it doesn't really make the list, but still discontinued. And the other one I showed you, it was compared to, was discontinued. So you've seen 3 discontinued fragrances. Welcome. Okay. Next, we're going to go to not a discontinued fragrance, but a discontinued producer of this fragrance. This distributor does not distribute this fragrance any longer. This is called Homme de Café. Now, this is a cheapie, okay? And Homme de Café, you'll notice down there at the bottom, it says manufactured by COFCI. That's the version that you want, the COFCI. The modern juice is a travesty. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. Don't let anyone tell you, oh, the reformulation is not bad. It's awful. It's one of the worst reformulations I've ever smelled. Not as bad as Perry Ellis cologne for men, but pretty bad still. But this juice is one of Alberto Morillo's first creations, if not his first major creation. And Homme de Café came out in 1978, and it's raspberry, orange, bergamot. There's this clove leaf / carnation leaf thing going on that makes it very unique. And then there's a heaping of musk, 70s musk, masculine 70s musk, with cedarwood. And the cedarwood here is, you know, it doesn't smell like pencil shavings, like Virginian cedar. It has that spiciness from the clove leaf / carnation leaf. Carnation can be spicy as well. I don't know if there's actually carnation flower in here or just the leaf, but it's a very unique fragrance, and it really shows Alberto Morillo getting off the ground here, taking flight for the first time. Interesting fragrance to explore, and it's a cheapie, but make sure don't go super cheap and get the modern. Pay a little bit more and get the older version. Would be my recommendation. Okay, next, another bottle you haven't seen very much anywhere. I don't see anyone else talking about this fragrance, hardly ever. If they have, I missed it. This is from the house of Wheel, Parfums Ville, and this is Kipling. And Kipling, man, what a fragrance this is. This is this leathery, spicy fragrance that's so mid-80s. It came out in 86. It's also discontinued, sorry. But you have to learn about these things. You know, this is important. You might come across a bottle, or you might just want to pay up and buy a bottle. I wish I had 100 ml and not a 10 ml. I think this is a 10 mil. Maybe it's a 15 mil. Maybe it's a 30 mil. I can't tell. Either way. Oh, it is a 30 mil. It is a 30 mil. And so this almost reminds me of another fragrance coming up later in the list. I don't want to give it all away at once, but I'll tell you when we get there. It opens up with Artemisia, citruses, and lavender, juniper. So it's fresh, kind of an opening with this green 80s basil, carnation, geranium, jasmine, and pine. And then the base is where you get the leather, oak moss, musk, patchouli, and cedar wood in the base. And that cedar wood adds this leathery, spicy, oh, it's so good. So the leathery spiciness mixes with that cedar wood to give off that woody base. And that's how you'll notice most woods in masculine perfumery is used. Most of the time, they're in the base to add, you know, depth, and woods provide a good base for a fragrance. They're not as volatile when you talk about a top note. You put bergamot in a fragrance and it's going to fly off in the top. And so cedar wood in the base in a vintage 80s perfume like Kipling is gorgeous. This is a beautiful juice. Actually, I got a compliment on this, believe it or not. I don't talk about compliments because I don't care. Usually I do the same thing when people say, you know, if someone says, I love your car, or, you know, whatever it may be, hey, nice sweater. I just take it in stride. Thank you very much. You know, I never make a big deal out of it. I'm not out there looking for compliments, but I was talking with my neighbor one day, and he came up and said, man, you smell like something very familiar to me. What are you wearing? I think one of my family members used to wear that. And I said, well, it's Kipling Wheel from Parfums Ville. You've probably never heard of them before in your life. He goes, I don't know what it is, but I love it. I said, thank you. So there you go. I mean, it kind of a just, oh, by the way kind of thing, but that's happened with a couple of these 80s fragrances to me. People notice because it's different. That's what I like about it. That and the quality, the construction, the time. I mean, this fragrance right here, just this random fragrance from the mid-80s, kills 99.9% of modern perfume, even the super expensive stuff. It just wipes the floor with it. I just don't think the modern stuff can compete. I'm sorry. Okay, next, we're going to go to a fragrance that you guys, if you've been following my channel, you know it because it was my scent of the day a couple weeks back. And this is from the house of Romeo Jiggly. And this is Romeo Jiggly per Uomo in the genie bottle. You got to open it up, let the genie out, and I love this fragrance actually. So this right here is an older bottle. I don't know how to tell age on a Romeo Jiggly bottle, but it came out in the early 90s, 91, and it's also an Alberto Morillas. So we've got a couple early Alberto Morillas fragrances, but this opens up with this aldehydic lavender with fruits, and the fruits is this very juicy plum, beautiful plum note. I would put this plum up there with all the best plums you can think of. You know, the poison, or you think of a great plum and stick it with that. It's that good. But what I love about this is there's a little bit of floral aspect. There's a little bit of this green, piney, balsam fir-like aspect. But then there's honey and cinnamon. And the cinnamon here is done late 80s, early 90s style, which I realized has a very distinct style to it. Like the cinnamon in Balenciaga Pour Homme, which is another one coming up here in a little bit, is one of the most unique cinnamons I've ever smelled. And the cinnamon here will remind you a little bit of Serge Lutens' Rousse, which is a fragrance that I got as kind of a set. I wanted Filin Agile, and I got it as a set because I was going for Filin Agile, and Rousse came with it, and I was so glad it did. That was a shocker to me, how beautiful of a cinnamon Rousse by Serge Lutens is. And this has a little bit of that Balenciaga Pour Homme Rousse cinnamon. But then the base is benzoin, amber, oak moss, styrax, tonka, vanilla, heavy notes, offset with sandalwood and cedarwood. Beautiful fragrance. You know, I hate the word niche quality, but it is. This is niche quality in a designer. This is what designers used to be. That's why it's such a shame, you know, when you go through this stuff and you really objectively think about it. It's a shame. All right, now, next we're going to go to one of the most highly praised fragrances by other perfumers. So when you ask a perfumer, hey, if you could make one fragrance, what would you make? A lot of times they'll say a couple things. They'll say fragrances like Eau de Hermes, or they'll say Eau Sauvage, EDT. Not Sauvage, but Eau Sauvage, EDT. And they will say this. This is Feminita Dubois. The femininity of wood, I believe, is what that stands for. And, you know, I've been collecting these old Serge bottles for a long time now, and I'm glad I have, because the prices on these are absolutely outrageous right now on these old Serge Lutens bottles. I guess because Papa Serge stopped distributing in the US, and people want the older bottles, because the new bottles are ugly. That black label thing that they did, that was one of the worst marketing moves ever a company could ever make. Maybe they were trying to make it pop a little bit more on the shelf, but whatever their reasoning is, I hate it. And I refuse to buy those bottles. In fact, I bought a decant of one of their newer fragrances that I wanted rather than the full bottle, just because I didn't want the bottle. And so this is Christopher Sheldrake and Pierre Bourdon, two of the greatest of all time to have ever done it. To have ever perfumed. And this is again, plum, two back-to-back plum fragrances. So you get this fruity plum and peach with one of the most, how would I describe it? It's almost like it's almost like the juice is in a blender and it's constantly mixing, but you get cinnamon, and then you get beautiful cedar, and then you get plum, and then you get florals, and then you get honey, and then you get beeswax, and clove, and musk, and ylang ylang. And so it was marketed for women, but this is totally, completely unisex because of the woods. The woods in this, the cedar wood specifically, is what really makes this a completely unisex fragrance, maybe even masculine. Because there's cardamom, honey, clove, the vanilla, the plum, the rose, maybe push it a little traditionally feminine, but then the woods push back and make it traditionally masculine. There's cinnamon here as well, which is beautiful. So I would say completely unisex. And I love this fragrance. I wish it wore a little bit heavier. I wish I had the old Shiseido bottle. You can tell the juice is a little light, so it smells almost like the juice looks. It's a little bit watery, but it has these heavier notes. You could wear this anytime, any place. There is no season. This transcends seasons to me. And the reason I think perfumers think it's so, the reason that they think it's so influential is because of the fact that no creative director ever approached a perfume that way. No one ever went in there and said, I want a fragrance that is going to be a woody fragrance for women. They didn't make fragrances with woods for women. The people creating it at first didn't understand what he was talking. What do you mean you want a woody fragrance for women? And so it was a bit of a barrier, something that kind of broke. And you see who did it: Christopher Sheldrake and Pierre Bourdon. Who better? Now, if you like that fragrance, I will tell you, there is another fragrance that I discovered that I like. I'm going to reach down and grab this fragrance here. I like this even sometimes more than Feminita Dubois because it does wear heavier. It's a niche fragrance from the House of Javoy. It's discontinued, unfortunately. I believe it's discontinued. Parfumo doesn't show it discontinued, but I think it is. And this is a fragrance called L'Enfant Terrible. Now, the terrible child is basically what that equates to. The terrible child is compared to Feminita Dubois. Okay? They are compared to each other because there's a lot of similarities, but what they did here, they amped the cumin up. Okay? Cumin's the terrible child that runs around and makes a wreck of this fragrance, is the idea. So the fragrance is very close to Feminita Dubois, but it has some additional notes. It has the note of date, okay? So it has dates. It has orange tree wood and sandalwood. And the sandalwood here is absolutely beautiful. If you came to me and said, Ramsey, pick some of your favorite sandalwood fragrances, obviously Samsara would have to be in the list, but this would be there. This is a video about my favorite sandalwood fragrances in a sense, but if you just narrowed it down to sandalwood, this would be very close to the top. Very close. Because there's something about the sandalwood here when it mixes with the... So it's a sandalwood cedar combo, but sandalwood leads the charge. With musk, nutmeg, which I've said before, nutmeg is like a note that just ties everything together. So think about the cumin bouncing off the walls, creating a havoc, you know. And the nutmeg is the barrier that keeps it all in, because it has that that spiciness, almost like a sack, you know, almost like you've stuck the fragrance in a sack and it can't escape, but it's trying to. The cumin makes it seem like it's trying to escape, but it wears thick. This is a heavy fragrance, whereas this wears very transparent and light. L'Enfant Terrible wears heavy, thick. You could almost say Feminita Dubois summer, this in the winter, if you wanted to go about it that way. But I'll tell you what a fragrance they created. And it's a shame that no one talks about this. I understand why. The cumin makes it challenging, and it's from a niche house, but for a niche quality, you get 100 ml. You get everything about this brand is, I mean, look at the glass. This is not a cheap glass bottle. It's thick. The cap is heavy. You could really hurt someone if you threw this at their head. It's a heavy cap. And so this fragrance didn't get the love it deserved, but if you're a lover of Feminita Dubois, check out L'Enfant Terrible, and it comes in this easy to carry box if you bring your fragrances with you. Anyways, so that's one. Next on the list, we're going to do a Gucci, and we're going to do one of my favorite Gucci fragrances of all time. This would have to compete with this fragrance would have to compete with Gucci Envy Pour Homme, and it would have to compete with Gucci Guilty Absolute. But this would be very close to the top, if not the top. This is Gucci Pour Homme 1 from 2003. Now, Gucci Pour Homme 1 from 2003 is a discontinued fragrance, unfortunately. It's a Michel Almerac, and one of his best works. And if you love cedar, okay, if you're a cedar lover out and out, I said L'Enfant Terrible is one of my favorite sandalwoods. This is one of my favorite cedar fragrances, because basically what he did is he took cedar and offset it with some smoky elements like frankincense, papyrus, but there's some fresh elements too. There's ginger, pink pepper, there's citruses, there's tarragon, there's pimento, there's some floral notes, there's jasmine, geranium, patchouli, but it's that sandalwood cedar combo. Here, cedar leads the charge. Okay, so cedar is the main note to my nose in this, whereas with Feminita Dubois and L'Enfant Terrible, especially L'Enfant Terrible, it's sandalwood. But if you're interested in this style, but you just can't get yourself to pay big money, or you can't find a bottle, you can always go for Bentley for Men Absolute, the black bottle. Now, sometimes this top right here will be gold, depending on what region of the country it came from, but it's the same fragrance. This is marketed by Lalique, and Lalique is one of those brands that just gives you much higher quality stuff than what you pay for, especially at discounters. So these can be expensive at retail. Lalique, like Encre Noir fragrances, for example, are over $100 retail, but you can usually find them on discounters for 20 or 30. And this is very similar. You get 100 ml. You get supposedly the same formula, right? He was able to take his formula with him. But the ingredients seem a little lower. Like, I prefer Gucci Pour Homme 1 over Bentley for Men Absolute. Even though they're supposed to be the same, they still smell a little bit different to my nose. But it's a good interpretation. It's a good imprint of the fragrance, if you will. Okay, now if you like that style, I'm going to show you a fragrance from Mark Buxton that uses mahogany wood and frankincense, and it gives me the same impression of Gucci Pour Homme 1. I get the same vibe when I wear it for some reason, even though it's completely different. This is Comme des Garçons Two Man, okay? Now, Two Man is a 2004 release, and it comes in the Pebble bottle, which I hate. I like the idea, but I hate that it doesn't stand up. And this is a mahogany wood vetiver with smoke, frankincense, and smoky notes, saffron blossom, nutmeg, kumquat, curly mint, and leather and vetiver. The vetiver is very important in this fragrance, along with the mahogany woods, because it really creates the base. And Two Man, if you like fragrances like Gucci Pour Homme 1, check out Two Man while you can. I don't know about different formulas, unfortunately. This says Made in Spain by Antonio Puig. I got it from Anouge. I think he even has more. So check that one out. Now we're going to move on to one of the greatest sandalwood fragrances of all time. Again, for my money, this would compete for the greatest sandalwood fragrances of all time. And this is Chanel's Egoiste. You'll see I have a new bottle with the black sprayer. I don't have the vintage with the silver sprayer. Either way, I find this version perfectly wearable. Even though it's not as beast mode, it doesn't last as long. I just reapply, whatever, who cares? It's that kind of fragrance to me. It, even today, even if you release this today, it's just as modern as it was 30 years ago. Rosewood, mahogany woods, coriander, orange with carnation, rose, and cinnamon, amber, leather, sandalwood, tobacco, and vanilla. Believe it or not, I wear this fragrance all year round. I will wear this in summer. I'll just get the itch sometimes and wear it. One of the best sandalwood fragrances ever created. If you like that style, I would encourage you to check out this. This is a cheapie that came out a decade later. So Egoiste came out in 1990. Well, Bois Noir, which was Egoiste's predecessor, came out in 88, I believe, a couple years earlier. Geo F. Trumper's Sandalwood Cologne came out in 2002. And it's very similar, but there's lavender here. And I don't think there is lavender, or if there is lavender in Egoiste, there's not very much of it. So there's lavender here, and there's some, you know, for what you pay for this, I think I paid $50 or something for 50 ml. It's a fantastic fragrance. There are some slight differences. Maybe one day I'll do a comparison video, but I remember the lavender and maybe the spices or the vanilla being amped up a bit here. It might be just a touch sweeter. Either way, I could wear either and be perfectly satisfied. Now, one fragrance that you never hear me talk about, because I haven't gotten on with this fragrance yet. I bought it just because, you know, sometimes you do that. It's marketed by Interparfums, I believe. And this is called Dunhill Icon Elite. Now, Dunhill Icon Elite is this woody, spicy fragrance that uses 2 woods, sandalwood and ebony wood. And there's a note of labdanum in the base with this black suede. And it's mixed with vetiver absolute and black pepper and cardamom. And this is the only other fragrance I've ever seen use the note of Kiffer lime other than Rogue's Schiffer Siam. Okay? So, woody, spicy with vetiver, dark vetiver, almost like, you know, Encre Noir, dark vetiver. But I'd take Encre Noir all day, every day over this. This is created by Jean-Claude Delville and Benoit Lapauza. It hasn't moved me yet. It smells a little cheap for some reason. I don't know. Maybe it's just me, but I'm not the biggest fan. Okay. Now, next we're going to go to this green, spicy, woody fragrance that has a fig leaf note that I really like. I mentioned fig leaf in fig in Dior's Dune Pour Homme. That's a really good fig fragrance. And this has this fig leaf with rosewood. This is Salvatore Ferragamo Pour Homme from 1999. Now, rumor is this is discontinued. So while bottles are cheap, I would urge you to go try to buy one. I don't really know about versions. I can tell you it's a beautiful bottle with the twist. It's got the twist in it. There's also a note of neroli, orris root, which is an expensive ingredient, cardamom, rose, oak moss, leather, musk, but the base has 3 very important notes: vetiver, cedar, and sandalwood. And those 3 notes give off this beautiful base. I love bases that use woods with vetiver. And this is going to be, I'm going to really get to know this and talk more about this pretty soon. It's a newer acquisition for me. Okay, now one that's not a newer acquisition, but is worth mentioning on almost any time you get a chance because it's such a great fragrance. Balenciaga Pour Homme. If you're a vintage lover like me, you have to have this in your collection just to experience the sheer perfection of this fragrance. This is Chris from Scentland says this is a fougere, that this is the best fougere ever made. And I don't know if I'd call it a fougere because it's a mixture of so many crazy things. Kind of like this is a mixture of so many crazy things, my scent of the day. And it is beautiful. This is a mixture of so many. Look at the cap. Look how it looks like it's like this marble blended, like you can't see through it. Obsidian is the word that Thomas from early Greek used about this fragrance. Light cannot penetrate. And it's that thick, but it's perfectly wearable. I'm going to wear this in summer this year. And so this is lavender, coriander, bergamot with honey, jasmine, lily of the valley. The base is benzoin, patchouli, vanilla, and a beautiful sandalwood note. Rumor is there's even oud in the base of this. I don't know about oud. But sandalwood, one of the best patchoulis you'll ever smell. I love Balenciaga Pour Homme. Love. Now, another old school fragrance I love. I was on a stream with Eugene recently, and they asked me what I think of Beau de Jour. And I said, honestly, I'd rather just wear this. This is Zino by Davidoff. This is a vintage Lancaster bottle. And I'll tell you what. Zino, oh, God. I've said before, there's a handful of fragrances that I am comfortable in anytime. I could be going to meet the Pope and I could wear Zino and be perfectly comfortable. 1986, rosewood, lavender, geranium, jasmine, lily of the valley, rose, patchouli, tonka, vanilla, but the base, sandalwood, cedar combo of epic proportions. That dark rose in the mid. I love this fragrance. Now, there's a fragrance that came after Zino. You may have heard me talk about it. It's my favorite masculine Guerlain ever. And it's called Heritage. This is the old gold cap EDT. I prefer vintage Heritage and vintage Abbey Rouge in Eau de Toilette. I don't like the Eau de Parfums. They don't seem the same to me. This is a fragrance that has 25 notes, okay? And if you are a lover of complex perfumery, obviously there's sandalwood and cedar wood in the base, just like Heritage. I love, just like Zino, I love Heritage. It adds so much. There's everything. There's this, AC from Smells Good says there's a rock star patchouli, and he is spot on. Rock star patchouli in here. But there's lavender. There's citruses. You will smell Jiggly in the opening of Heritage. If you've ever smelled Jiggly, you'll smell Jiggly. You'll smell the powderiness of the orris from Abbey Rouge. It's everything. It's Guerlains from past and Guerlains from present. The patchouli will give you an impression of L'Instant de Guerlain. They took that patchouli and continued to work with it. So it foreshadowed the future, and it gave reminiscence of the past. Aldehydes, and almost like this forest floor-like smell when you first spray. There's a little bit of Mouchoir de Monsieur in here, just a touch of dirtiness in the base, and then there's a huge dose of oak moss in the vintage. I'll tell you what, Heritage vintage, if you've never smelled Heritage vintage EDT in the gold cap, do yourself a favor. It's one of my favorite masculines of all time. All right, now we're going to do a cheapie. This is a Annick Monardo. Can't go wrong with an Annick Monardo. No matter what you do, you cannot go wrong with an Annick Monardo. This is cardamom, nutmeg. This is Visit, by the way, by Azzaro. This is cardamom, nutmeg, pink pepper, ambergris, musk, frankincense, with blue Lebanon cedar and Guaic wood. And Guaic wood will sometimes give off this smoky, almost like burnt, almost like a smoky burnt-like smell, like barbecue-like smell. If it's, but this mixes with the frankincense, and it's absolutely beautiful. It's such an easy wear. I don't know if it's discontinued or what's going on with it, but I'll tell you what, if you like Annick Monardo's other works, which I am a big fan of Annick Monardo, check out Visit. Visit is worth getting your nose on. Beautiful Guaic wood, sandalwood combo in there. I thought there was sandalwood in there, but Parfumo says Guaic wood. Either way, it's fantastic. Now, another Guaic wood fragrance with cedar is this. This is a vintage bottle of Kenzo Jungle Pour Homme. 1998, I'm sorry. This is an Olivier Cresp. Oh, the spiciness here. This is one of the best spicy fragrances ever. If you're a fan of spicy fragrances, get a vintage of Kenzo Jungle Pour Homme. And I don't want to hear anything about the modern version being just as good. Get a vintage, trust me. It is lime, nutmeg, and the vintages aren't too expensive yet either. Lime, nutmeg, mate. There's this mate tea note in here too, which makes it very unique with cinnamon. But the cinnamon and nutmeg and that resinous benzoin in the base mixes with the woods, the cedar and the Guaic wood. Anytime, literally any time of the year, you could wear that. I wore that in winter last year just because I was fiending for it, and I wore it and it worked beautifully. Okay. Unfortunately, we have another discontinued fragrance. But this is a Pierre Wargnier, and this is a fragrance called Antidote by the house of Victor and Rolf, which they're mostly known for their Spice Bomb line nowadays. This is my favorite Victor and Rolf. Hands down, by far. I like it better than Spice Bomb. I like it better than Spice Bomb Extreme. Although I would probably say Spice Bomb Extreme is my second favorite. This is a fragrance that doesn't shout. This is not a shouter. This is a personal fragrance, okay? It's close to the skin, but it's a very complex fragrance. It has a lot of notes. It has lots of citruses and spices, grapefruit, bergamot, mandarin orange, mint, cardamom, with a bunch of florals. There's stuff like freesia, geranium, orange blossom, lavender, violet, and then there's nutmeg and cinnamon. So there's that spicy combo, which you also get in Kenzo Jungle Pour Homme, nutmeg and cinnamon. And then the base is where this fragrance just goes off on a tangent and does some crazy stuff, because it's like they took everything and mixed it together. There's amber, oak moss, guaiac wood, iris, labdanum, leather, patchouli, sandalwood, tonka, vanilla, white musk, and cedar. And you would think this is going to be a beast. It's not. It sits close to the skin. It's super elegant, super classy. For a designer, what a fragrance. I mean, complex, interesting. If someone gets in your scent bubble, they will think you're wearing something very expensive. Fantastic fragrance. Okay, next, we're going to do a Italian fragrance. And I think it's also discontinued, but I could be wrong. This is the Schiaparelli Pickens distributor. And this is Arrogance Uomo. And Arrogance Uomo came out in '87. And it is basically a citrusy, it feels a bit like an Italian take on this spicy, woody, citrusy fougere, if you will. So it's aldehydes, artemisia, bergamot, lavender, mace, sage with geranium, jasmine, lily of the valley, carnation, and rose. I love carnation. Amber, oak moss, leather, patchouli, vetiver, cedar, and just a touch of castoreum to make it interesting. And that cedar in the base, along with the fougere structure, because it is missing. The thing about it, though, that I don't think makes it a true fougere is it doesn't have that tonka, it doesn't have that coumarin, so I guess you couldn't call it a real fougere. It does have lavender, geranium, but it's think of it like a citrus take on a fougere, on an 80s fragrance. Beautiful. Now, this is one of the, for everyone who says, oh, you just only like the vintage, this is a perfect example of how that's not true. I prefer this version over the vintage. This is a fragrance by, starting to say, the great Jean-Claude Elena, but you know what? I'm going to say it. The great Jean-Claude Elena. This is Equipage Geranium. Now, Equipage Geranium is a fragrance that took me a long time to end up getting, because I didn't like the original Equipage. I struggled with it, actually. And that's supposed to be Guy Robert's, one of his best fragrances, till I discovered Goldman, until I discovered Diorescence, yeah. Diorescence blew me away. I need to give that a full wear soon. But this fragrance also I love, because Jean-Claude Elena took that spicy green Equipage, 70s fragrance that smelled almost like an old man, and he modernized it for the 21st century. And he added geranium, obviously, Equipage geranium, which sometimes will add this cleanliness, this floral cleanliness. It can also smell a bit like rose, and it does both in this fragrance sometimes. Depends on the weather and when you wear it. But there's a sandalwood note in here that is a shapeshifter. And the sandalwood note, I've only worn it to bed a couple times. I haven't given it a full wear, but I will give it a full wear soon. And I'm going to do a comparison video with the vintage bottle, which is right here. This is the vintage Equipage with the crazy, wheel cap. And so I struggle with this, but this brings this beautiful sandalwood note in very true to form, Jean-Claude Elena form. It's complex, it changes, but you have to pay attention. If you just spray it on and go and don't pay attention, you'll think it's just an easy to wear, boring fragrance. But it's not. It's so much more than that. It changes, it shifts, it moves with, you know, it moves with you. It really does kind of move with you. You could dress this up, you could dress it down, it seems like it's very versatile and very excited. If you're a sandalwood lover, the sandalwood in Equipage Geranium really took me by surprise how beautiful it is. Okay, on to the last half of the video. This is going to be a long one, so buckle in. Next, we're going to do a Gucci, a discontinued Gucci. This is Gucci Nobile. Gucci Nobile from 1988. One of the greatest fougere fragrances ever made. Lavender, bergamot, rosemary, cyclamen, geranium, carnation, rose, balsam fir, loads of balsam fir, oak moss, loads of oak moss, patchouli, vetiver, and then that beautiful sandalwood and cedar wood combo in the base. Absolutely lovely stuff. If you can't find this, go buy Rogue's Bon Monsieur. Rogue's Bon Monsieur is one of the most beautiful modern fougères. If you want the vintage, and you're willing to pay big money, I saw a bottle of this on eBay for $700. You could try to grab this, but I'll tell you what, it's not worth $700. I'll tell you that. But it is a fantastic fougère. Okay, now my biggest bottle. I don't have a bottle bigger than this. This is the largest one, and I'm so glad I have this because even though the name is Royal Oud, it really is. It really is almost like Royal Cedar. This is Royal Oud in the 500 milliliter flacon. I love this fragrance. I went through an entire bottle, basically, is what happened. I owned a bottle, I ran through it, and I said, I need a flacon. Actually, that's not correct. I ran through an entire flacon of this, not a bottle. I have a 250 ml flacon of this that I've used in my lifetime. So as you can see, this is a 2016 batch. This was very close to a signature scent for me in the old days. I love this fragrance. I love it. There's something about the mixture of cedar, pink pepper. This is Lebanon cedar, by the way, with Tonkin musk and sandalwood, that very smooth Creed sandalwood that they are so popular for, with two green notes, galbanum and angelica. Now, this was created with Julian Rasquinet, along with Olivier Creed, they say. And there's a fragrance that Julian Rasquinet's mentor put out. His mentor is the great Pierre Bourdon, and it's called French Lover. You can't see because the writing is coming off. But this is my last couple drops of French Lover. And I'm going to review this before this is gone. But French Lover came out in 2007. It has that same feel. Angelica, vetiver, cedar, galbanum. You can get the drift. It's very, to my nose, they're very close but different. I actually prefer Royal Oud, but I think it's because I have such experience with it and so many memories with it. If French Lover was what I wore first, I think I would probably prefer this. It does feel a little bit more forest floor-like. The vetiver in here gives off a little more forest floor vibe, if you will. Now, speaking of cedar, so Creed's Royal Oud, a lot of people say it should be Royal Cedar. This is the ultimate cedar fragrance. This is Christian Lacroix Tumulte. Tumulte. I don't know how to say it, but I do know that it is the master of cedar fragrances because this is a cedar plank in a bottle. It is 4 types of cedar. 4. Atlas cedar, Chinese cedar, Texas cedar, Virginian cedar. It does give off a little bit of that pencil shaving vibe. There's bay laurels, juniper, and frankincense that offset it, but it's cedar. It's a cedar plank in a bottle. If you're a fan of heavy wood fragrances, only problem is it's discontinued and extremely expensive. Best from the house ever, hands down. Now, another Creed, and this is the only new bottle of Creed you'll ever see in my collection because I learned my lesson after I bought this. This is Himalaya. And I bought this and I went, I'll never buy another 100 ml bottle of Creed ever. This is a 2017 batch, as you can see right there. And I really like this fragrance, but I remember the 4-ounce bottle. I had a 4-ounce bottle before this, and I used it up. And I remember the 4-ounce bottle being much deeper, better. This has this sandalwood, this Creed has this smooth, creamy sandalwood that I love. Easy to wear, almost mass appealing with citruses at the top, pink pepper. There's pink pepper and cedarwood and sandalwood and nutmeg and vetiver, a gunpowder note, which I don't pick up, and then ambergris, musk, and tonka bean in the base. Stunning fragrance. Love it, but I'll never buy it. Once this is gone, that's it. Unless an old bottle of a 75 ml or 100 ml falls in my lap, this is my last bottle of Himalaya. And this is the only 100 ml Creed, 50 or 100 ml Creed you'll ever see in my collection. I learned my lesson. Okay, next we are going to go to another Creed. And it literally has wood in the name. And this is Spice and Wood. I don't know about this fragrance. I'm a little let down in this fragrance, to be honest with you. Some people compare it to Royal Oud. They don't smell anything alike to my nose. This is basically apple with pink pepper and pimento, clove, patchouli, vetiver, oak moss, iris, musk, and the base is cedar. And there is a nice cedar note in here, but that's the best word for this fragrance. It's nice. $1,000 fragrance should not be nice. It should be mind-blowing. It should be the greatest thing your nose has ever smelled. Your nose should have an orgasm, and it doesn't. This is nice. It's kind of boring. So that's my take on Spice and Wood. In fact, there is a fragrance that I would compare it to, and it's this. This is Chic Shake number 70. You can see right there, number 70. Shake, one of the coolest bottles ever. It feels so good in the hand. It's perfect in the hand. It's got the beautiful emerald on top. Nice little detailing. It's a cool bottle. This is a house from Bahrain. And Chic Shake number 70 is Spice and Wood, to me, done better. See, this came out in 2008. Spice and Wood came out in 2010, 2 years later. So this came first, this came second, and they smell almost identical, but I prefer wearing this for some reason. This has this, so here, let me read you the notes. Bergamot, clary sage, orange, and lemon with jasmine, lily of the valley, musk, patchouli, sandalwood, cedar, vetiver. Sandalwood, cedar combo with vetiver. I love that combo. The musk in this, I think it's the musk. I prefer the musk in this for some reason. Either way, neither fragrance blows me away. But if you're going to buy one, don't spend $1,000 on this, in my opinion. Go for Chic Shake. Or just skip this altogether. Okay, next, we're going to go to a vintage fragrance, which I just did a comparison video of a week ago on my channel. You can go watch that if you're so interested. modern to vintage version. Look, I was cleaning out the hole even for you guys before I was going to show you. How's that? This is Bijan Men. Bijan Men. Bijan Men came out in 81, and then it was re-released in 87, and in 88 it won the Fifi Best Fragrance Award from the Fragrance Foundation. This is Ronald Reagan, Arnold Schwarzenegger's signature scent. I did a whole talking point during that comparison of Bijan. He came from Iran. Someone mentioned that the bottle almost looks a little bit like a turban. Interesting bottle. Very interesting. I don't know anything about it. The donut with the golf ball on top. But the sandalwood in here is beautiful. But there's a lot else going on. There's clove, patchouli, musk, amber, some citruses. But the sandalwood in here is... Check that out. Oh! Man down. Man down. Okay, next. Next, we're going to talk about an Alberto Morillas from 1988. And this uses sandalwood in the mid. This is called Sybaris. And this is a Chypre fragrance. A spicy Chypre. With some green notes and aldehydes at the top. But it's the cumin and cinnamon combination which really take over and mix with the sandalwood. There's also leather and frankincense in the base. I need to wear it again. It's been a while since I've worn it. But the cumin sandalwood put me off the first time I wore it. But interesting fragrance if you like vintage fragrances from the 80s. And you can still pick that up for cheap sometimes. Okay, next we're going to go to the house of Halston. This is a spicy woody scent that I love. I love this fragrance. I'm so glad I found a bottle. And I got the original Halston Fragrances Inc. This is Catalyst. You've seen this on my channel before. Catalyst for men. Perfect spring summer fragrance for me because it's green. There's basil, bergamot, tarragon, galbanum, jasmine. I can't read the notes. There's too many. But the base is cedar and sandalwood combo with frankincense, musk, oak moss, benzoin. There's some depth. So good. Big fan of Catalyst for men. There's also a vodka note in that, which is very strange. You don't see that very often, except for in, there's an Ungaro fragrance back here called Ungaro Pour l'Homme 3 that uses a vodka note. Okay, next Halston is Halston 112. This came out in the mid-70s. This is the vintage Halston Fragrances Inc. version. And Halston 112 is this green, spicy, there's cedar in the base, okay, with galbanum and basil, lavender, juniper, pine. Some people said it was a feminine fragrance when it came out, that it was too feminine for men back then. I don't think so at all. I think it is a little more unisex than their other fragrance they're most famous for, which is Z14. And Z14 is my favorite from the house, I must admit. And Z14 is so good that Tom Ford copied it and created Italian Cypress, which is also discontinued. I think this is discontinued too. I don't know for sure though. But I think 112 and Z14 are discontinued. Max Gavari created this, which he also created the Dolce & Gabbana Pour Homme in 94. And this has a bunch of notes. But the woods are cedar wood in the mid. There's this cedar vetiver thing, which just works out so well, cedar and vetiver. Because vetiver can have that woody aspect too, with cinnamon. Now, the cinnamon in here is done to perfection. I love the cinnamon in here, and I love the cypress. If you love the cinnamon and you want to get kind of a niche version of Z14, to my nose, you can go for Clive Christian's X for men. Now, X amps up the cardamom and the pimento. It also amps up the resin, so there's heavier labdanum and styrax and vanilla, but it uses that cedar wood with oak moss and vetiver combo that Z14 uses, and you get that, you know, you get that flair, that quick, you know, comparison in your brain when you wear this. And there's also a beautiful note of iris here. So if you want kind of an interesting evolution of Z14, check out X for Men. Not X-Men, X for Men. Okay, next is going to be a Roja Dove. Because if you like that DNA, you can check out this. This is Reckless pour Homme. Now, this is the eau de parfum. It's discontinued, but I don't think the other version is discontinued. I think you can still buy it. But Reckless pour Homme is Roja's take on X for Men and Halston Z14, I think. There is cypress wood in this, along with cedar wood, cinnamon, and sandalwood. So you get that woody base, but there is, you know, the Roja touch, if you will. There's jasmine from grass, May rose, rose de Mai, and cistus labdanum. And cistus labdanum is a note Roja loves to use, and I love it too, actually, in fragrances. And this is topped off with this artemisia, citruses, laurel, bergamot, lavender. Beautiful, beautiful composition, but I don't need a full bottle of it because I have the other stuff I love wearing. And I have by the way, if you look at my Z14 bottle, for those of you freaks of distributors like I am, you'll notice that it says Halston Fragrances Inc. And then you'll notice it says Made in New York. I found a splash bottle, which is on the way, just shipped it today, a week after I bought it. And it says Made in France. Comparison video time. Okay, next we're going to do a decant. If you're a sandalwood lover, Acqua di Parma, Colonia Sandalo. Sandalwood, Indian sandalwood, and lavender with citruses and spices. So smooth. The lavender here is, you know, just smoothed out to perfection. I don't even know what to say. It's so smooth. If you want a great office sandalwood fragrance, this is so attractive. Now, a sandalwood fragrance that's not so attractive, I struggle with, I'm going to make myself wear it and talk about it one day, is this. Le Labo Santal 33. This fragrance. This is Australian sandalwood and cedarwood with papyrus and just a bucket load of ambroxan and leather, cardamom, iris, violet. That Australian sandalwood, cedar, and papyrus just hits you like a brick when you wear this. It's rough, it's tumble, it's not refined. It almost feels like someone who's never blended a fragrance blended this. But people love it. I'm going to wear that and talk about it one day. I have a love-hate relationship with that fragrance. Now, I want to talk about another fragrance called Ormond Man. And Ormond Man came out in 2004. This is what the packaging looks like. Comes in this little magnetic thing. And there's the bottle. Ormond Man is a woody spicy scent that uses the note of hemlock, which is very strange. This is a Giza Schon, 2004, with oud and musk, sandalwood. So this came out 2 years after M7. So oud just got kicked off. They made this niche version with oud in it. Sandalwood, vetiver, cedar. I love that combo though. So it's very attractive, this is another attractive, great work scent. Because it's not going to offend, but it's also not too interesting. But it does smell high class, I have to admit. Would I buy another Ormond Jane? I don't know. This might do it for me. Okay. Last two. And they're both bangers. Ones I don't talk about too often on my channel because I like to keep the bottles under lock and key. And this is Calvin by Calvin Klein. Calvin Klein Cosmetics. Oh, this fragrance. I am in love with this fragrance. I love everything about this fragrance. Oh. If you've never smelled, this is the greatest fragrance from Calvin Klein ever. Hands down. No question about it. Not even I won't even hear an argument about that. It is the greatest fragrance from Calvin Klein ever. And it has this great masculine bit about it. You know, this is 81. So this is the same year as Antaeus, another one of my favorite fragrances, and Koros, another one of my favorite fragrances. And even though this doesn't have the stink that Antaeus and Koros have, the animalic bits, it has the power, if that makes sense. And no, this is not Jeremy fragrance power. This is real power. This is 80s power. There's a refinement to it, though. That's what's amazing. So it's heavy and it's in your face and it's 80s and it's masculine. It's, you know, hairy chest masculine. But there's chamomile, neroli, geranium. So it has that contrast of clean, dirty, musk, huge dollops of oak moss. Like the guy messed up and someone played a joke on him and hit his hand and the oak moss barrel just went into the batch. Sandalwood, vetiver, oak moss, patchouli. I love this fragrance. I'm so glad to have found this. And this is the vintage cologne. I won it on eBay. I had to make a serious effort at the end. It was a war at the end. We were hitting refresh as fast as we could, and I ended up winning that a year or two ago, and I'm so glad that I did. The final one is one of the greatest masculine fragrances of all time, Jean Carleo. Can you guess? Patou Pour Homme. This is a tester. This is a vintage eau de toilette tester bottle with one of the greatest Mysore sandalwood notes you will ever smell, mixed with cedar and vetiver, bourbon vetiver. Malabar pepper, clary sage, and pimento. Class all the way. This is a tuxedo in a bottle. But it's a tuxedo you could wear. I could wear this any day, honestly. But it's the Mysore sandalwood that sets it apart. And I'm pretty sure there's oak moss in this too, even though Parfumo doesn't list it. I'm pretty sure Jean Carleo knows his way around what to use, and it's oak moss, and it's oak moss and Mysore sandalwood. The killer combo. The thing that makes vintage hunters like me just go, our brain short circuits. We have to buy it. And I'm so glad to have a bottle. I wish I had more, but it's impossible to find nowadays, unless you're either the luckiest vintage hunter of all time, or you're willing to pay big money. So that's my This Is Not a Top 10 Woods edition. I'm sure there are 150 or 1,000 other fragrances with woods you could tell me about. But if there's some on the list you want to be added, put it in the comments. I love seeing your faces below. When we get to 1,000 subscribers, I'm going to do my I'm going to do my top 100 countdown. And I'm going to rank them. And I'm ready. So you guys get me there. So a like and a subscription is always appreciated. Obviously, you don't have to. If you watched an hour and 10-minute video, I know you're a fan. And so I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you got something out of it. I've been meaning to do this for a while. Eddie, thank you for giving me a push to do this, my friend. And cheers, guys. I'll see you again tomorrow with another video. Bye-bye.